The year 2000 was a critical year for the U.S. presidential election. The race between Democratic candidate Al Gore and Republican candidate George W. Bush was considered one of the most contested elections in history. On election night, as the votes were counted in many states, the results in Florida took on great significance. Florida's 25 electoral votes played a critical role in deciding the outcome of the election. On November 7, 2000, as votes were counted across the country on election night, the results in Florida changed constantly. At first, the media announced that Al Gore had won Florida. Later, however, it was reported that George W. Bush was ahead. And finally, the Florida results were declared too close to call, because they were too close. This uncertainty left the American people and the world in suspense. On November 8, 2000, a primary vote count in Florida showed Bush leading Gore by nearly 1,700 votes in the state. With 25 delegate votes to choose from, the winner in Florida would become the next president of the United States. The initial vote totals in Florida were very close, with a difference of less than 0.5%. In the first recount, Bush trailed Gore by only 317 votes. Gore requested a manual recount in 4 counties. Democrats and state officials have been at odds over the recount. At the end of election night, George W. Bush was leading in Florida by 537 votes. However, this small margin automatically triggered a recount. The recounts in various parts of Florida have caused many problems and inconsistencies. In particular, due to the butterfly ballot design in Palm Beach County, many votes were invalidated or went to the wrong candidate. On November 26, 2000, Florida Secretary of State Katherine Harris confirmed that Bush had won the election by 537 votes. Gore later sued Harris because not all recounts had been completed when she certified the results. On December 8, 2000, the Florida Supreme Court sided with Gore and ruled that all statewide undervotes or punch card votes cast but not recorded due to a problem called hanging chads must be recounted. Bush immediately appealed to the United States Supreme Court, which on December 9, 2000, ordered a stay of the recount until the arguments in the case were heard. The justices faced a legal deadline. Under federal law, known as the Safe Harbor provision, a state must identify its voters 6 days before members of the Electoral College meet in person. In 2000, that deadline was December 12th, with arguments to be held on December 11th, giving the court 1 day to decide. On December 12, 2000, the divided court issued an unsigned per curiam opinion with concurring and dissenting opinions written by specific justices. In the first part of the decision, 7 justices, including liberals Stephen Breyer and David Souter, agreed with Bush that his equal protection rights were violated because there was no existing legal standard for recounting punch card votes. Another part of the decision, by a vote of 5-4 along ideological lines, stated that no solution to the recount problem could be brought until December 12th, the deadline for the safe harbor. According to the majority, the Florida Supreme Court stated that the Florida state legislature wanted Florida voters to participate fully in the federal election process by complying with the safe harbor deadline of December 12th. The Supreme Court ruling, in sum, was against the Florida Supreme Court, sending the case back to the court for further action. But because the safe harbor deadline had passed, Bush remained the certified winner in Florida, and Gore conceded the next day. The recount process in Florida was subject to repeated legal challenges by both the Bush and Gore campaigns. On December 11, 2000, the U.S. Supreme Court stayed the Florida Supreme Court's recount order, confirming Bush's victory. This decision was considered one of the most controversial court rulings in American history. The decision was 5-4, with the majority opinion arguing that the recount violated constitutional rights. The 2000 Florida recount crisis had a profound impact on the American electoral system. After the election, many states reviewed and reformed their vote counting processes. Electronic voting machines and other technological improvements were used to prevent similar problems in future elections. However, the crisis shook the American public's confidence in the electoral system and exposed the fragility of democracy. After the Supreme Court ruling, Al Gore announced that he accepted the election results in order to preserve the unity of the country. This was seen by many as an important step in preserving the democratic process and national unity. At the beginning of his presidency, George W. Bush tried to unify the country with the lessons learned from this crisis. The 2000 elections were a time of debate on the role and influence of the media. Misreporting on election night created great confusion in the minds of the public. This led to the need to reassess the role and responsibility of the media in electoral processes. The 2000 Florida recount crisis was a crisis that tested the resilience of American democracy and the electoral system. It showed how fragile democracy can be, not only in the U.S. but also around the world. What do you think should be done to prevent such crises? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. See you in our next video.